The best Christmas ever. Tim Mayhem woke at 10:45 a.m. excited but unsure about what. He knew he had a day off, but it took some seconds for the final fingers of the snakebite fumes to peel themselves from his fogged brain. He still couldn't remember as he sat up, and his thin chest shook as he coughed and spat into the full ashtray on the bedside table. Christmas Eve, he remembered now. A good Catholic boy like him, and he was forgetting Christmas. Well, fuck that religion shite. He was going to spend all day where he'd spent most of last night. In the Lescar. He hadn't bothered buying any presents because there wasn't anybody to buy presents for, apart from his sister and her son. He loved both Teresa and Josh dearly, but he hadn't been able to afford anything on the list that Josh had given him, especially as he was now only on a temporary contract at the brewery. He'd felt so crushed and inadequate at this that he'd pushed it to the back of his mind and then forgotten about it. Teresa had told him not to bother getting anything for her. He normally only bought her things he'd have bought for himself anyway. She'd given him his present months ago, an AC/DC DVD he'd opened on the day he received it, because he'd known what it was and couldn't wait to watch it. He thought he could remember watching it the previous night, actually. Vague memories of someone banging on the wall of his bedsit stirred him to reach for the sovereign packet on the floor. He extracted a cigarette with his long, thin fingers and lit it whilst he considered the day ahead. He didn't think there was any food in the kitchen, so he wouldn't bother with breakfast. Get some pork scratchings from the butcher's across the road later. He knew the Lescar didn't open officially until 12 and probably wouldn't actually be open until just after that. So he smoked the rest of his sovereign and then had a wank about the new barmaid, a blonde one he thought might fancy him because she had a funny eye and couldn't afford to be picky. Then he went back to sleep. He woke as if by magic at exactly noon. No hanging about now. He rose quickly, finding his jeans and maroon jumper and pulling them on over his grubby blue briefs and Def Leppard t-shirt. Long fingers through his lank black hair were quicker than a comb. The same fingers picked the lumps of sleep from his bloodshot, watery blue eyes, and then made a sign of the cross as he blessed himself and said a prayer for his dead mother. He missed her at Christmas, but tried to push his memories of her to the back of his mind. It was getting cluttered back then. One day soon there'd be no space left, and something would come spilling out. Not today. He reached the Lescar at 12:30. He'd made good time considering he had to get to the newsagents for 20 sovereign and a Daily Mirror. He didn't have time to visit the butcher for the pork scratchings, so he made do with some peanuts and smoky bacon crisps from behind the bar. Sylvia, the landlady, had served him, informing him that he wasn't allowed any snakebite until at least 4. He could have either cider or lager until then, but not both in the same glass. His stomach had felt a bit dodgy, so he'd opted for the cider. Although stronger, it slipped down easier when you were struggling with just a few crisps. There was a trio of special prizes behind the bar. A big bottle of absinthe, the proper stuff, occupied the gold medal position on a podium constructed from old books and cardboard. A bottle of Glenfiddich was the silver medalist, and some cheapish looking red wine the bronze. "What's with bottles, Sil?" Mayhem asked. Sylvia hated being called Sil, but it was Christmas and he was a regular, however tiresome. "Well, Timothy," she replied, "it's for a raffle." "Oh, aye? What for?" "You remember Des Scully?" "A Scouser? Drinks in the tap room?" "Yeah, well, he got arrested last month and he's on remand at minute." Mayhem nodded sagely. He'd heard vague hints of how some grassy cunt had landed Scully in bother for dealing. Old man like Scully and some grassy cunt snitches because he's growing weed and knocking out a few pills. Prison'd be hard for him at his age. Even Mayhem knew that. "Well," Sylvia continued, "some at taproom lads are having a raffle, raising a few quid for him, trying to make Christmas a bit better for him and his family, something like that." "Oh! Yeah!" Mayhem exclaimed. "Give us a ticket then." "OK, £2 each." "Please." Sylvia placed a curious emphasis on the last word. Curious to Mayhem anyway, as he handed over a £2 coin. Fucking useless coins. Mayhem hadn't got used to them yet, and he was glad to get rid of the one in his pocket. Sylvia handed him one of the purple cloakroom tickets being used for the raffle, and he carefully folded it into 4 before placing it in one of the back pockets of his jeans, storing it securely against a wizened buttock. Jewish Dave and Danny Noble came in then, and told Mayhem that Gordon Collingwood was coming in later with Elaine. Mayhem, already cheerful, was floating as he started his second pint. He liked Dave and Danny, but he loved Gordon and fancied Elaine. As the cider began to kick in, he genuinely thought he might have a chance with her. Sylvia poured Tim his first snake bite, as promised, at exactly 4 o'clock. That's when he asked her when the raffle was being drawn. It had been bothering him all afternoon. Investing £2 in getting a ticket for it was something verging on the sacred for Mayhem. I don't know when we're drawing it, Tim, Sylvia wearily explained, her patience thinned by having to serve a rammed, noisy, demanding pub. Oh, right. Mayhem's mouth was wagging futilely as his brain battled the cider to find something to say when Tom Brown returned from the toilet to the bar. Tom had just successfully concluded another transaction. He was knocking out pure MDMA powder at 40 quid a gram and high quality Charlie at 65s. It was promising to be a lucrative Christmas. Did you just mention raffle, Sylvia? He asked, with a lopsided grin. Yeah, Mayhem bought a ticket. Oh dear. Tom shook his head with faux seriousness. You should have told him not to bother. All lads had a whip round after the match on Saturday. Everyone whacked at least a fiver in. All lads were out too Saturday. But what with it being Christmas, so we made hundreds. No need to bother with raffle after that. I better have that absinthe back. Oh, right, said Sylvia, handing him the big green bottle. Has any Mayhem bought a ticket anyway? She smirked. Tom laughed, his red face shaking. Well, he can have second prize, he chortled festively. The only cunt to enter, and he gets second prize. He went away, laughing with the absinthe chuckled in his fist, back to make money in the tap room, before Sylvia could say anything else. She made to speak to Mayhem, but he'd already been distracted by Danny and Gordon shouting at him to get a move on with those fucking pints on the table by the teller. He was having a great time and had momentarily forgotten why he was talking to Sylvia. He'd spoken to at least 3 women when he'd never met before, and at least 2 people had brought him drinks, and he'd not returned the favour. He was right pissed, and AC/DC was throbbing through his subconscious like a giant hymn. Christmas was fucking great. A couple of pints later, thoughts of the raffle resurfaced. Danny was at the bar getting the drinks in, so Mayhem lurched over to hassle him. Danny was cheerfully flirting with Sylvia, whose eyes twinkled as he slurred and wisecracked. He was on form. He'd had some of that fucking MDMA off Browning, lad, and was floating. Sylvia quite liked Danny, but all her twinkling ceased when Mayhem's cardiac maroon snake-bite face appeared over his shoulder. Sell! Sell! Mayhem exclaimed. What now? A raffle! Raffle! What about her? Oh, for Christ's sake, the bloody raffle. Here. She grabbed a bottle of Glenfiddich from the podium and thrust it at Mayhem. His arm shot out like he knew before Rod Hull died, and his fingers clutched the green neck of the triangular whisky bottle. He was ecstatic. Yes! He shouted, and then spun and lurched back to the table by the teller. Gordon and Elaine and a few others gave him some playful drunken hassle, and he stashed the bottle under the table. Danny Noble turned towards him, shaking his head as he asked Sylvia, so he was the only one to enter, and he won second prize? Sylvia nodded, her face a mask of comic solemnity. Only Mayhem could be the only contestant in a raffle and walk off with second prize. There's a lesson there for him if only he'd look. I'll have a large whisky, please, Sylvia. A fine malt with which to toast Mayhem. And get something for yourself too, love. They both laughed as he slipped her a tenner and then drank his whisky at the bar. By 11, it had been the best Christmas Eve ever, and Mayhem was completely pissed. He'd drunk getting on for 18 pints of various things, plus a few shots of spirits, because, as Danny kept yelling, it's fucking Christmas. He joined in an entire pub Oasis sing-along, culminating with Whatever, led by the taproom male-voiced Blades Inspirational Choir, as they'd styled themselves, and at least 4 people had given him a Christmas kiss, 2 of them female. He'd even learned what Christmas was called in Jewish from Dave, the fucking Spurs fan. Everything felt great. It was almost like Wednesday in Cardiff back in the spring. He could hardly stand. He was feeling ecstatically sleepy as he decided it was time for home. He managed to extricate himself from the festive hugs and best wishes in the yellow warmth of the pub. Outside was dark and clear and cold. Frost glimmered on the asphalt on the yellow sodium streetlights. The contrast was difficult for Mayhem to deal with, so he burst into song. I'm free to be whatever I choose. and I'll sing the fucking blues if I want. Normally he hated Oasis, but today he'd won second prize in a raffle. Mayhem had never won second prize in anything before. This was the best Christmas ever, he thought, as he turned up the general that led to his flat. The best Christmas ever. It was a shame he didn't notice the discarded carrier bag of festively emptied cans that caught round his feet and legged him up. His fall didn't knock him out. The carrier bag twisting round his feet had turned him round so that he'd stumbled awkwardly and landed on his back in a three-stage slow-motion fall. His head had lolled and he'd fallen into a delicious alcoholic coma rather than sudden violent unconsciousness. The whiskey bottle had remained in the icy grip of his long fingers and, cushioned by his cradling torso, had not broken. As his grip loosened and his body shifted sideways on the ground, it had rolled slowly up against the red brick of the general and lain still, miraculously. Mayhem lay, peacefully unnoticed, for several hours. The festive shouts, retches, screams, tears, slaps, kicks and smashes all ricocheted around in the Christmas ether over his smiling, somnolent face. Around 2 o'clock, a small, shy, black cat, new to its owner and exploring its new nighttime world, chanced upon him. She sniffed cautiously, twitched instinctively away from the sleeping human's rancid breath and waxy ears. Curious as to what the heavy green shape was that was lying against the wall, she raised her forelegs to look, and then scuttled across Mayhem's chest. The gentle pressure woke him, and he stirred, scaring the cat away. She hurried out the general before Mayhem noticed her. He groaned and moaned and gulped. Then his breath seemed to die in his chest with a gurgle. He shivered, convulsing on the ground, then sat up and coughed productively, exclaiming, "Fucking freezing," as he did so. The cold cleared his head quickly, and he looked round, some unspoken head instinct telling him to check for the whiskey. He sighed as he caught sight of it, thinking nothing of its wondrous preservation. He raised his stiff limbs, and then retrieved the bottle. A mixture of Oasis and AC/DC hummed over the fairy lights and tinsel that stuck inside his head. This truly was the best Christmas ever, he thought, as his thin fingers fumbled with the keys to his bedsit, and somewhere from across the city came the sound of a baby crying. Merry Christmas, everybody!